Good morning, grade 2. Good morning, everybody. Today is the day for continuous task of our reading comprehension lesson 16, Mr. Tannen's Thai Trouble. Today is Tuesday, 9th of June 2020. Let's start by reminding you with our e-learning rules for students. Close your camera. Okay. And this is my work plan. So today we will do the continuous task of lesson 16, Mr. Tannen's Thai Trouble. Our learning outcomes for today are: I can describe major events that happen in a story. I can create a paragraph that describe major events that happen in a story. Let's start by stating our first objective: to describe major events that happen in a story. As we said before that we have a summary for Mr. Tannen's Thai Trouble. Mr. Tannen was the principal of Lyndhurst School. He loved his school. He also loved ties. Mr. Tannen had almost 1,000 ties. One day, Mr. Tannen received bad news. Many things at the school had to be fixed. There wasn't enough money in the school budget for a new playground. Mr. Tannen was disappointed. Mr. Tannen was staring at the old playground when he had an idea. He would sell his ties for the playground fund. Mr. Tannen put up signs. Everyone talked about them. The whole town came together for the occasion. Many people bought ties. Mr. Tannen sold all of his ties except for one. He was sad because he had only one tie, but he was proud because now there was enough money for the playground. On opening day for the new playground, Mr. Tannen came to cut the ribbon. The playground was wrapped in a ribbon made from all of his ties. They were his ties again. Mrs. Sweetapple repeated Mr. Tannen's word: the more you give, the more you get. And really, this is the most important matter in our life. After we have read the summary for Mr. Tannen's Thai Trouble, I want you to try to write the graphic organizer of Mr. Tannen's Thai Trouble. Who were the main character, if you remember? Yes, the main character in our story was Mr. Tannen, Mr. Apple, and his wife. And people of the town. Where does the story happen? It was in the school, especially the playground. Okay, what was the main problem of the event? That Mr. Tannen needs money to fix the playground. Okay, can you write for me what happened in the story first, next, last? Easy. First, Mr. Tannen was sitting at his office thinking about fixing the school playground and everywhere, but he doesn't have any money. The two girls came to him and gave him the little jar and full of money from their own reward. Then what will happen? Mr. Tannen thought that he can he can sell all of his toys to do what? Yes, to fix the playground. So he started to do an auction to sell all of his toys. The people of the town came to him and buy all of his toys. Then, by the end of the story, last what happened? Mr. Tannen was in the playground. He found all of his toys surrounding the playground, and the students and the town people gave him back his toys as a reward for his deed. And he said, the more you give, the more you get. And what was the solution of the events? That the townspeople helped Mr. Tannen because he already helped them. Wow, I like what you're already thinking about with me. Can you do it by yourself alone now? Okay, I want you here to just write Mr. Tannen character as you just felt. I believe that Mr. Tannen, he was a great man, he was a generous man, he was kind, he was helpful, he was so smart, and he likes to help others. In the beginning of the story, he starts to help his school and his students. By the end of the story, he already helped them and they helped him to give him back all of his thoughts. Can you challenge yourself now and answer the next questions? How does Mr. Tonnen feel at the beginning of the story? Angry, happy, sad, surprised. He was what? Yes, he was a little bit sad because he doesn't have enough money to help his friends. Okay, let's go to the next question. Which best describes Mr. Tannen's problems? Okay, and also which best of these was his problem? No one wants to buy his toys. His playground is too crowded. He has about 1,000 crazy toys. There isn't enough money for a new playground. Yes, there isn't enough money for a new playground. It's number I. What happens before Kylie and Alex gave Mr. Tannen the jar? Mr. Tannen opened his toy closet. Mr. Tannen puts signs up all over town. Mr. Tannen puts on his blue ribbon tie. Mr. Tannen talks on the phone with Mr. Apple. Yes, he was talking on the phone with Mr. Apple. Just come to go to the other questions. How How does Mr. Tannen feel when Kylie and Alex gave him the jar of money? Scared when he fears it clink clank, angry that Kylie and Alex brought him the money, happy that the new playground can be built, sad there isn't enough money in the jar to build the playground. Yes, he was happy because the new playground can be built. Yes. Which word best describes Kylie and Alex? Afraid, helpful, mean, thankful. Yes, both of them, they are helpful. What happens after Mr. Tannen puts up signs? Mr. Apple calls Mr. Tannen. Mr. Tannen sits in his office. Mr. Tannen thinks of selling his ties. The whole town comes to Mr. Tannen's occasion. The whole town comes to Mr. Tannen's occasion. Why does Mr. Tannen keep his blue ribbon tie? Nobody wants to buy it. He paid a lot of money for it. He wants to wear it at the new playground. It was a present to him for being a good principal because it was a present to him for being a good principal. Now, let's go to the next page. How does Mr. Tannen feel after the occasion? Sad that his clothes is empty, angry that everyone bought his ties, happy that Kylie and Alex gave him the money, afraid that Mr. Apple will not let him build the playground. I believe he was sad. What does Mr. Tannen do right before the ribbon cutting ceremony? Tucks his speech in his pocket, makes a ribbon of all of his ties, slips on his swing and slide tie, makes his way through the crowd. He was makes his way through the crowd. Now we just have one question left. At the end of the story, why does everyone give the ties they bought back to Mr. Tannen? They don't like the ties. They want to thank Mr. Tannen. They think the ties cost too much money. They want Mr. Tannen to sell the ties again to make more money. Yes, they want to thank Mr. Tannen. And this was my last question in the challenge time. Now it's my time to my next objective to create a paragraph that describe major events that happen in a story. How can helping others make you feel good? Talk with your mommy or your daddy or your friend. Use a text evidence that from Mr. Tannen's The Thai Trouble to tell your ideas. Also talk about times that you have helped others and you feel so amazing. Take turn listening and speaking. Use respectful ways to take your turn speaking. Also, I want you to discuss with your mom or your dad what decisions do the characters make that helps Mr. Tannen solve this problem. Why do the people in the town give Mr. Tannen his ties back? How does Mr. Tannen feel when the people in the town gave him back his ties and why. If for your information that Mr. Tannen's tie trouble, he was loving all of his students, all of his school, and he wants to help them. So he just sacrificed with something so important for him and gave it to his school. So when he did something good, all of them did another something to return back his goodness. As he said in the story, as much as you give, as much as you take. So now I want you, from what did you learn from the story? I want you to answer those questions by yourself. What does Mr. Tannen love? In page 18 and 19, what makes Mr. Tannen so happy? In page 26 and 27, why can't Mr. Tannen sell his blue ribbon tie? In page 30 and 32, how does Mr. Tannen feel about the playground? Now, if you've done my answers correctly, I want you to check your answers with my answer key. You have everything in your PPT and PDF files in Class Dojo. Mr. Tannen wants to have a tie. I want you to remember the special day when the playground opened. Try to do details to write about your story, and I want you to draw whatever you like on his tie. This is now your turn. Make your own interview with Mr. Tannen. I want you to make a small interview to try to complete the sentence that you have here and try to make it with Mr. Tannen. You will write, my name is, and I'm interesting, and give me more questions, more things about yourself to Mr. Tannen, and give me 3 cool facts about my friend. Also, after you complete this interview, think about how could you design a tie for your friend or partner using the information you found about him or her. Maybe she is your sister, maybe he is your brother. Design a tie for them as a gift. I will be so glad to see it on Class Dojo. Please send everything you did to me on Class Dojo. I am waiting for your answers and thank you all. Goodbye, grade 2. If you like my lesson, send to me one from the 3 faces, green, orange, or red. And don't forget my Merzano evaluation from 1 to 4. Now it's your time to write your paragraph time. Goodbye for now. See you later. I'm waiting for you for your paragraphs on Class Dojo. Goodbye.